Hello, and welcome to How the Pros Play. I'm SupremeKotor, and I've coached quite a few Grandmaster teams. A while ago, I realized that the strategies I see from other teams, in the Overwatch League, and even from my own teams were quite different than what I saw in Ranked. That's what inspired me to make this video series. Every week I'm going to go through a map in 5 minutes or less and break down exactly the best options for compositions, positioning, and just overall winning. With that said, let's jump right into How the Pros Play number 1, Anubis. Starting with attack, your team will usually find the most success playing one of these 3 team comps. The first is Goats, or 3-3, a comp composed of 3 tanks and 3 supports. It has a huge amount of sustainability. The second is Deathball, a comp composed of 2 tanks, 2 DPS, and 2 supports. This comp features high damage from your DPS. On this map specifically, I would suggest playing your Deathball with Reinhardt, Zarya, McCree, Widow, Lucio, and Ana. The third is a 2-2-2 dive, a comp composed of 2 dive tanks, 2 dive DPS, and 2 healers that can support the dive. These healers are most commonly a mixture of Zen, Lucio, and Mercy. Now, it wouldn't be fair to not give quad DPS an honorable mention, but it's a comp that actually has a very low success rate, and I actually have a video coming out later that breaks down all the maps where it can have some success on. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to glance over it. You would select your team composition based off what your team is most comfortable on, and based off your enemy team. For example, if you don't have any good hit scan players, it wouldn't make sense to run the Deathball comp. Now that you've selected your comp, you have to focus on which route to take to get to point. Each has pros and cons. Left allows you to get to your enemy fast, and in Goats vs Goats, the mega health pack on the left side can make all the difference. However, if the enemy has a Zenyatta or a Widow on the high ground, they'll be free to shoot you for the entirety of the fight. Middle allows you to speed straight to point, and is most commonly used when running Moira Goats or another composition that favors point pressure. Right is by far the most versatile. It allows you to rush to point, fake out the enemy team, or even take the high ground from them. Here's a great example from the Washington Justice of just how powerful right can be. They rotated right, which then gave them the freedom to go up top, but instead they actually pretended to go up top and circled back around down below, where Sol was no longer ready for them and they were easily able to get a pick and win the fight just based off of that clever positioning. Now that you've mastered first point attack, it's time to take a look at second point attack. The comps are almost the exact same. If you've chosen to run DPS, I highly suggest you switch your DPS to ones that have win conditions. This can be Sombra's EMP, Genji and Ana's Nanoblade, Zarya and Hanzo's Grab Dragon. The reason for this is that the defense has such a close spawn, they can actually group up and fight you as 6 even if you win the first fight. If you don't have ultimates that can turn the tides, their Goats ultimates are just going to stop you right away. If you don't want to run DPS, Goats is still perfectly viable on the second point. Surprise, the second point routes are almost the exact same. The left is great for taking almost no damage in your rotation and having a safe room to wait out your cooldowns before you brawl with your enemy. The middle is mostly meant for rushing 2-point. The right can allow you to rush to point and catch an enemy team's DPS or supports before they can rotate, but it offers very little cover for your supports. It's high risk, high reward. Most teams end up rotating left. This is because point 2 is very ultimate centric. It's rare you will win a 6v6 brawl, and instead it is often better you wait for your ultimate combos to come online. Now onto defense. You just full capped, so how do you full hold? First is the team comp. Anubis defense compositions are very similar to Anubis attack compositions, with the addition of subbing Winston for Ryan in our Goats commonly. This allows Goats to have much more mobility and a better chance at controlling the high ground. However, you do not have to do this. Ryan Goats is still perfectly fine. One comp that is sometimes mentioned is a bunker comp, but I personally cannot recommend it. If you run a bunker comp, or treehouse, it's very common for the enemy Goats to win first point and then snowball second point with their ultimates. So where do you hold the first point? If you're running Goats, the choice is clear. Either your entire team holds the middle, or 4 to 5 of you hold the middle, while 1 to 2 of your supports stay up top. If you're running Dive or Deathball, the choice is slightly less clear. Dive, you just want to position somewhere where you can all get on the same target at the same time. This will change based on your team, your preferences, and your enemy team. Death Ball, you just want to position so that your snipers, your McCree, and your Widow, that is, have great opportunities to hit shots. Usually this looks like you holding the middle while your Widow holds up high. Second point is as simple as it gets. Pretty much every team has ran goats, and I can't really condone anything other than that right now. Anything other than goats, the enemy team tends to run goats, go through the left, and they have so much more point pressure than you that it's impossible to contest them. At this point, the only comp that I can truly recommend for second point is your standard Rhine goats. Well, that's it. That's the end of my 5 minutes for Temple of Anubis. I hope that you learned something that you can take back into your ranked games or back to your team if you don't have a coach. If you did learn something, I would encourage you to hit that subscribe button because I am going to be releasing a map every week.